Okay, sir. Respected Professor A.M. Deshmukh, President MSI India, Dr. Shilpa Jani, President MSI Gujarat and Goa State, Dr. Vijay Kumar, Regional Coordinator, Saurashtra and Kutch Region, dear participants, which includes students, research scholars, and academicians across the country. A warm good afternoon to all present in this virtual hall of 8th expert lecture in this expert lecture series organized by Microbiologist Society India in association with RK University, Rajkot, Gujarat, India. Also, on behalf of one and all present here in this virtual meet, I would like to take privilege to welcome our eminent speaker, Dr. Gurvinder Singh Pochar. Sir is a principal microbiologist and head, Department of Microbiology, Punjab Agriculture University, India. Sir is a detail-oriented microbiologist with extensive experience in research, industrial, environmental laboratories in the area of bio-utilization of agriculture products for ethanolic fertilizers and enzyme production. He's
Madam, your voice is sweet and
adopting new technologies and incorporating them into the laboratory regime. He has designed and executed scientific protocols as a research scientist, especially in the production of vinegars and wine in batch scale, production of industrial ethanol from sugar cane and rice straw, and biodegradation of recalcitrant products. He is a result-oriented professional with strong organizational and excellent communication skills. Strive for continuous improvement and implementing technical discipline. Sir has various awards, national as well as international awards in his name from USA as well as Germany. Sir has various patents to his name and also developed various technologies with various research contributions in production of wine, vinegar, alkaline phosphatase, biofuels, to name a few. We are honored to have you, sir, and all our participants are eager to listen about your experience and your expertise. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. First of all, please let me share my screen. I'm not able to share screen.
1 minute, sir. 1 minute, please. Kochar, sir, please 1 minute.
In the meantime,
Kochar, sir, is now host. He can say, he can share PPT.
Okay, thank you. So, first of all, I am thankful to Dr. Swati, Dr. Deshmukh, sir, for inviting me to deliver this talk. I am equally thankful to the participants who have joined, more than 60 they have joined. So I'll try to be very concise with respect to my topic. It's an interesting topic I would like to inform, because wines, we say they are the weakness of everybody, the alcoholic drinks. So, and it is evening time, so after the lecture, you can enjoy wines. So let me start with the okay.
Yes, sir. Before starting your PPT, I would like to tell 2-3 sentences before starting your PPT. To all audience, I want to tell that Dr. Kochar is a assured pillar of microbiology society. I'm really proud of Dr. Kochar. The reason is that he is working for Microbiology Society. From many years, he is associated with me. And I am really happy today to listen him. All the best, sir. Thank you very much.
Do I need to first make it full screen before starting the screen sharing?
Yes, sir.
You are a co-host, sir. You can share the screen.
I can, but I am not able to make it full screen view.
Full screen, it's a very simple. There are 3 icons. Go to the last icon, slideshow. Slideshow.
Yeah, when I do it,
You click on slideshow, you will get a full screen.
yeah, it is there, but then I am not able to back to the
Sir, first you share your presentation. After that, make it to slideshow mode.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, correct.
yeah, okay.
First, you share your presentation. You are not sharing. You share it, sir. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Now you can make slideshow. Or otherwise, it is visible to us. No problem. Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's a now full screen.
Yeah. So, information, sir. I now start my presentation. Well, as I said, the wines, they are everybody's weakness. So, starting with the today's topic, I won't say it is an expert topic, but it is just my passion, and I just want to discuss or share with you all this, which is presented in this presentation. Well, okay. Now, first of all, why is processing necessary? If you look into the figures of last 3 years with respect to fruit production in India, we are increasingly, or our production is increasing with every year. And in 2021, it stands at around 103 million tons. And the area is also parallelly increasing. And we are, this is very important, that we are second largest producer of fruits and vegetables after China. The most of the fruits which we grow include banana, mango, citrus, guava, grape, and others. And the main states which are involved in the production are Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Bihar, and some northern states like UP and then Punjab also. The main point of concern which I want to present here is that we are using the fruits in their fresh form up to 76%, and the losses for 22%, which is the main concern. And the reason for the losses is one thing which is imminent, is that fruits are perishable. They are subjected to losses because of various external and internal factors, which include the mechanical injury, the parasitic diseases, and the normal physiological deterioration. That's what makes the post-harvest management very imminent, which aims to increase the shelf life of the fruit by providing appropriate conditions, simultaneously maintaining their nutritional composition as well as quality attributes. Now, even if you store your fruits or produce in optimum conditions, which can be low temperature storage or an increased carbon dioxide atmosphere, even then the shelf life is limited. That's where the role of processing and value addition becomes important, which not only preserves the foods or fruits, and as well as it reduces the wastage. What is the status of food processing in India? This is another point of concern. You see, we are just processing 4% of our food produce, which is almost negligible when we compare it to not the developed countries, the other developing countries such as Brazil or Malaysia, where it is more than 70%. So the reason behind is that we have inadequate infrastructure. There is not a sufficient link between production and processing, which makes there are gaps in the supply chains. That is, from farm to fork, there are different steps. The harvesting, from the harvesting, transport in appropriate atmosphere, then processing, first of all, preserving them, then processing, and finally making the product and distributing it through wholesalers and retailers to the end users. So there are many links involved between, you see, from farm to fork, which needs to be strengthened, which needs to be monitored, which needs to be given a proper direction, which is lacking in our country. It's not that India is not a good food processing market. It is, because of its geographical position. It can export to various countries, including Middle East, Europe, then the Eastern countries, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and Korea. And we have already developed a link between India and Gulf with respect to the fruit transport, the transport of vegetables, and other produce. Not only this, various indigenous products like tomato puree, canned fruits, frozen vegetables, ginger garlic paste, all these are liked by the Indian consumers. Also, everybody of us has some of these products in our kitchens or refrigerators. Simultaneously, the government is also determined to encourage growth in this sector by allowing 100% foreign direct investment, which includes not only the infrastructure, but the processing part also, including the storage, cold storage chain, warehousing, distillation and brewing of alcohols. Also, it provides soft loans, tax holidays to new food processing units in fruits and vegetables, as well as some other benefits. Now, I come to the second part of this talk, that what are the benefits of fermenting fruits and vegetables. Now, there are various advantages of using fermentation. One is it improves the food security. Food security is a topic of today. There are many conferences, workshops being held on with respect to food security. So here the fermentation can play a very important part. Not only it preserves food, it preserves the foods by producing various types of organic acids and alcohols, imparting different type of flavors, textures to food, reducing toxicity, and also decreasing the cooking time. Simultaneously, the fermentation also can be used to salvage waste foods. The waste foods, they can otherwise, which are not usable, they can be they can be modified, I would say, or bioutilized through fermentation. For example, tembrongrik is a protein-rich food made in Indonesia by fermenting peanut and coconut press cake, which remains after extraction. It is also involved in removal of anti-nutritional factors. Now, you see many fruits and vegetables, they have some naturally occurring toxins and anti-nutritional compounds like saponins, tannins, phytic acid, gossypo, lectins, and many more. These factors, they combine with the nutrients of the fruits and foods, and they prevent the availability of nutrients to the consumer. So by fermentation, these can be removed or detoxified. For example, the fermentation process removes the toxins like tannins, oxalates, phenols from the leaves of Cassia obtusifolia. Similarly, cyanogenic glycosides of cassava, which releases cyanides when taken raw, they get removed by fermentation. Then, of course, when you have the proper utilization of the produce, the income as well as the employment in case of the processing industry, etc., will increase. Also, the fermentation improves the nutrition. You see, there are, I would say, there are some common examples like milk intolerance is there. So if you have milk being converted to curd, that removes its intolerance. Similarly, it provides vitamins. For example, idli, which is lactic acid bacteria fermented product, it is high in thiamine and riboflavin. Similarly, sorghum beer is rich in riboflavin. Palm wine is rich in B12, etc. So it provides the vitamins which are being produced by the fermenting microorganisms, besides increasing the digestibility through the production of lactic acids, enzymes like cellulases, amylases, etc. Then also fermentation provides medicinal benefits by lowering pH, the antibiotic production, bacteriocin production, etc. And it improves the cultural and social well-being by providing us with the differently flavored and different appearance foods like pickle. I come to the grapes in particular. Now, grapes, the Vitis vinifera, this is grown from temperate to warm regions, and hot and dry climate is ideal for its growth. Now, Indian wine grapes, they come in different characteristics. They can be colored, seeded. They can be even unseeded, are basically for the table purpose. They have large or small berries. Normally, the wine grapes, they are seeded. You have varieties like Indian Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Shiraz, and Zinfandel, etc. Among the red varieties, Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, Clairette in white, and some unseeded varieties like Perlet and Thompson Seedless for the table purpose. Areas, as I have already discussed, mainly it's grown in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, but some northwestern regions like Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, Rajasthan, Himachal, and Madhya Pradesh, they also grow the grapes. Maharashtra ranks first in terms of production, accounting for more than the total production and highest productivity in the country. If we talk of some basic facts and figures regarding grapes, it utilizes 2% of the total area, accounting for 123,000 hectares, and produces about 2.77% of the total world production. In productivity, our country stands first with 23.5 tons per hectare. We are also a major exporter of fresh grapes to different parts of the world. In 2021, we generated 2,298 crores by exporting 2,46,000 metric tons of fresh grapes. And major countries of export and France, UK, Bangladesh, Russia, and now grapes being perishable for their preservation for longer durations. And once they are fermented, and the grapes, they produce wine, which has huge acceptability across the world and has immense potential for local marketing as well as export. In 2019-20, India produced around 18 million liters of wine, which cater to 70% of domestic needs. And also, we exported wine to Australia and European Union, though around 30% of the wine is being imported. But that is basically bound to decrease year after year because our wines are being liked by other countries also. If we look into the number of wineries available in the country, wineries, whereby in Maharashtra 70% of wineries are there, and some wineries in Karnataka accounts for around 15% of wineries, and others like Goa and Himachal, they have some wineries. and around 2,500 acres of area under grape cultivation is being used in the country for wine production. The Maharashtra government has declared winemaking business as small-scale industry, has provided excise concessions also. So other states need to follow this decision of Maharashtra government to encourage the production of the country. Now, this is something which needs to look into. That still we are not we drink a lot of distilled liquor, but with if you look into the wine consumption rate, this is very low. Against 60 liters per person in France, Italy, or 20 liters in Belgium, even 1 liter per person in Turkey, we have just 9 ml. But on an average, 6 liters of alcohol is being consumed in the country per person. And this is the area which needs to be looked into, because the distilled beverages, though they provide, as they say, kick during when it is taken, but wines they don't provide kick, but they are nutritional. Consumption of these needs to be encouraged, and that of the distilled beverages discouraged. What I want to convey in this slide, that wine is for health. It provides though energy in the form of alcohol, but it has good quantities of nutrients like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Besides, this is the data from USDA. A quote by Louis Pasteur: "Wine is the most beautiful, most healthy, and hygienic beverages." So, this is what our pioneer of microbiology said. Not only the basic nutrients, it provides huge content of polyphenols, tannins, organic acids, and other health-friendly compounds. Particularly, the compound resveratrol needs to be talked, because though it is present in the ratio of around 0.1 to 14 milligram per liter as a polyphenol in wine, but it provides many health benefits, like it's anti-carcinogenic. It is removes or it prevents it removes as well as prevents cholesterol accumulation in the body. What makes wines. Now, coming to the different varieties, some of this I have already discussed. I just want to convey that the wine varieties, there are more than 20 varieties which are under cultivation in India. And we have our own varieties, like Bangalore Blue, which is called Indian Merlot. We have Gulabi, Muscat, Shiraz, Pinot, Nior, Zinfandel among the seeded varieties. And the white seeded varieties like Anabe Shahi, Dilkhush, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling. So these varieties, some of them are exotic, but many are in our own. Many of these are our own, that is indigenous. The wines produced from which are even being exported. So slowly and slowly, the exotic varieties are going to be replaced with our own varieties. Currently, Thompson Seedless, which is a table variety, is the main grape variety, which occupies around 55% of the area with its clones. Then Bangalore Blue or Indian Merlot occupies 15% of the total area, which is purely a red wine variety, while Anabe Shahi and Dilkhush 15%, and then some varieties like Sharad Seedless, Perlet, and Gulabi, and 5% each. Complete list of grapes. So, then I come to the next part of the talk, that's the background of enology. Now, enology is the study of wine making, and the viticulture is the growing grapes for wine production. We have 3 different categories of wine production, or I would say 3 different types of wines: still wines, which have around 7 to 14% of alcohol. They are without carbonation. Sparkling wines, which are with carbonation, and the alcohol content is less, 7%, or it can be up to 9% also. Fortified wines, which have a higher alcohol concentration, 14 to 30%, they are fortified with more alcohol. They are fortified with herbs also to make them more medicinal or health friendly. So, coming to the wine quality. Now, the quality of the wine is determined by, as I said, there are two different branches of the wines and wine production. That is viticulture, where the grape growing is there, and enology, where the processing of the grown grape is there to make the wine. Both these are important. Viticulture, viticulture, the weather conditions, the soil, the pruning, and other processing of the grape trees, which are also called vines, and they come in viticulture. And then also one part is that when the variation occurs, that is from green to they become the grapes, they become red, or from the I would say from the crude berry stage to the mature berry stage when they get converted. So that is very important, that we'll discuss later in the talk. Ecology involves skin pretreatment, the type of yeast, the fermentation parameters, and clarification, stabilization, and aging. All this I will discuss in this talk. So, starting with how wines are produced, the wine fermentation. It basically consists of some steps like the plucking of grapes at right stage, the extraction of juice preparation, which includes skin pretreatment also in case of red grapes, the yeast fermentation, and a secondary fermentation in the form of malolactic fermentation, the maturation. Now, starting with the stage, as I was saying, that the starting from the viticulture stages, like when the grapes need to be harvested. That is an important stage. Normally, the grapes are harvested in summer in northern states, while in winter, in case of the southern states like Maharashtra. So, grape selection or processing. The grapes, they are first treated with the KMS or potassium metabisulfite, which produces pre-sulfur dioxide, and the concentration of that should not exceed 75 ppm. And sulfating removes the unwanted bacteria before the next step is there. Equipment, simultaneously, it needs to be sanitized properly, which is done with oxygen-based caustic solution or chlorine in the form of the hypochlorites, water, and then it is cleaned with water, and then an antibacterial sulfide solution is added once again. Finally, another water rinse is done so that the equipment becomes perfect for the grape fermentation. Normally, around 10 gallons of is used for every gallon of wine. Then, as I said, two types of grapes are used for fermentation. The green grapes also, which produce white wines, and red or black grapes, which produce red wine. Well, in case of white, when processing grapes for the white wine, after the cleaning of the equipment and the grapes is done, they are immediately pressed, and the juice is sent to the tanks by pump or gravity fed. In case of red grapes, so as soon as this is the example of the modern day press, which uses a balloon which is inflated to extract juice from the berries. Of the air which presses against the berries, that is maintained between 0 and 10. In case of the white grape fermentation, temperature is normally kept around 15 to 18 degree, and the sweet wines, they are made by leaving some residual sugar after fermentation, which is done by late harvesting, freezing the grapes to increase the sugar concentration, or killing the yeast before the fermentation date. Red, as I said that in case of white, the juice is extracted, fermented. In case of red, the grapes are crushed with all parts, that is including the skin. They straight away go to the fermentation, because the skins and the seeds, in this case, they are important to pass on tannins as well as a required bitter taste to the red wine, and this mixture is called must. Now, in case of the red wines, the fermentation is faster because the temperature in this case is kept 25 degrees, whereas for white grapes, for the green grapes, it is from 15 to 18 degree centigrade. Now, again, continuing with the fermentation, the process for red wine is initially open to air. After the must is transferred to the fermentation tank, a cap is formed when the fermentation proceeds, because the solids, they are pushed to the top due to the carbon dioxide production, and this cap it has to be in contact with the juice for as much as possible in order to retain the color and the tannins. So for this, the cap is either manually, it is punched down twice a day, or by pumping, the cap is mixed with the juice. Once the juice has been transferred to the fermentation tanks, the yeast is added and the oxygen is removed either manually or with fermentation. Some initial fermentation of an overnight or so, and automatically the oxygen gets evacuated from it, and it becomes an anaerobic fermentation. And the most common yeast used for the fermentation is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. This is an important yeast because it can tolerate around 12 to 13% or even 14% of alcohol which gets produced during fermentation. And also this is acclimated to the free sulfur dioxide concentrations of more than 50 ppm, which makes it a major contributor towards the fermentation. Though there are some indigenous yeasts also attached to the grapes, or their inherent species, but they get killed during the cleaning process as well as during the fermentation when the alcohol concentration increases beyond 5%. This is the biochemical reactions which occur basically. Everybody knows it, that glucose gets converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide. Normally, by using Saccharomyces cerevisiae, we have around 12 to 13% of ethanol. So for every gram of sugar, we have around half a gram of alcohol being produced. So that means if you want to produce around 12% alcohol concentration, we need to have 24% sugars or dissolvable sugars, or the bricks has to be above 21 or 22. So that sufficient quantity of alcohol gets produced. For the fermentation, there are differences among the fermentation processes. It can be a storage tank type, where some white wines, they use wooden barrels to introduce a flavor into the wine. But the normal or the conventional tanks these days, they are stainless steel ones. And their sizes are variable from 300 to 1200 grams. As I said, the fermentation temperature is different for red and white wines. It's 15 to 18 for white wines and 22 to 25 for the red wines. So the length of the fermentation process is also variable. It varies from 10 to 30 days. For red wines, it's normally less than 10 days or equal to 10 days. So the maintenance of temperature, proper temperature, is very important, because fermentation is an exothermic process and heat is produced during it. temperature is maintained in its optimum value. After the primary fermentation, there is an optional secondary fermentation, the malolactic fermentation, which involves the conversion of malic acid present in wines into lactic acid and carbon dioxide, which changes the flavor of the wine from crispy to creamy buttery, as well as it reduces the amount of acidity from 0.3 to 0.5 units. This can be introduced, or it can happen naturally also, and can be tested with paper chromatography or any other analytical technique. The controlling of the pH is an important aspect also during fermentation, because high pH results in lesser flavor production in the wine, which is a prerequisite for its consumer acceptability. And to lower pH, normally, if you have a starting pH of more than 4.5, the tartaric acid is added at the beginning of the fermentation process. Mixed acid ratio is normally adjusted with the help of tartaric acid to around 30. Then after the fermentation is over, the aging is important. Now, the aging period, it is not a necessary step in wine, but it is normally done so to produce important in case of wine. Normally, it is done for red wines in oak wood barrels, or wood finings may be used, or corks made up of wood can also be used for this. Once the aging process, which is normally variable in different wineries, the wine is filtered and sent to be bottled. The aging process, it has been in different wineries, it is different, and it also produces different grades of wines. Some of the wines which are aged more into their aging runs up to even 10 to 15 years. They are priced high, whereas those which are aged in oak wood barrels for a minimum of 6 months or so, they are normally priced lesser. And there are some port wines also which are not at all aged. They are right away, they are bottled, and the cheaper wines can be produced. So, as I said, that once the aging is done, then you have the filtering of wines to make them clear. One of this is the process is the cold filtration, which removes as much as sediment as possible. Normally, once the fermentation is complete, the wines, they are brought to, or the aging is complete, they are brought to -3 to 3 degrees centigrade or near 0 degrees centigrade for 1 to 2 weeks. And this normally removes most of the sediments. Also, if the wines, they are unstable, that is, they are turbid because of the presence of different proteins or tannins, they can be heat stabilized, because heating the wines removes the proteins or make them settle down either alone by heating, or they inert materials like bentonite. Once the stabilization is done, the wine passes through large filters to separate dead cells and other sediments. Normally, these filters, they are made up of cellulose or some other material, coarse material, which removes the larger particles. Also, gravity filters can be used, though it's a slow process, but sometimes it is not carried out, as if you expose the wine for a more number of just a minute.
Judo.
So wine gets exposed to the air, the oxidation process starts, and the taste of wine is changed, which is not, as well as taste as well as color gets changed, which is not required. So After the passing through the large filters, it is the wine is passed through smaller filters to remove the residual sediments, for which the membrane filtration systems are used. After this, we come to the bottling part. Now, right before bottling, a small amount of sulfite is added to help preserve the wine and prevent further fermentation. Then bottles are sealed, normally using a cork, and the head space is evacuated of air by using some inert gases like nitrogen, or nitrogen is sparged into the head space, which removes the oxygen and prevents its oxidation. And after that, the cork is placed and the bottles, they are stored. Even the storage is important, that it is stored upright. Bottles are stored upright for about 3 days, and then they are brought at an angle, so that they the wine comes in contact with the cork. Now, this is basically to make the cork wet, because if the cork is not wet, it is dry, then tiny holes of the cork may bring oxygen into the wine and make it vulnerable to oxidation. Also, the percent humidity can affect the performance of the cork. So normally around 60% humidity is desired. Some wineries now, they are switching to screw caps or synthetic corks to avoid this effect of oxidation. Then some other precautions include that the bottles must not be exposed to sunlight. Normally amber colored bottles are used. It can be of brown color or bluish color or green color, because the sunlight also exposes oxidation and breaks down the wine structure. Now, the normal temperature, the optimum temperature for storage of red and white wines is about 50. Storing wine in cellar, these are some conditions there. The temperature of 15 degree, humidity has to be between 50 to 80 degree. The bottles need to be stored in dark, calm. There should not be air ventilation in the cellars. Coming to some of the problems of the ethanolic fermentation of wine, the main culprit is the oxidizing bacteria, Acetobacter. But this is sensitive to sulfur dioxide. That's why we put, once the fermentation is complete, the sulfite is put into the wines so that Acetobacter does not grow. One of the problems, another problem is the burnt match smell. If this is because if more sulfite is or residual sulfite is there in wines, then overly sweet wines, sometimes fermentations, they get stuck due to some reason. So in them, the sugar concentration is still higher. So in those, the fermentation needs to be restarted to convert the residual sugar into alcohol. And hazy colored wines can result from using iron, copper, zinc, or aluminum in the fermentation tanks. So if it is from iron or copper, a few drops of citric acid can remove the haze. Then filtering also removes the haze, but filtering simultaneously brings wine more to exposure to the air, so it is normally avoided. Then fining can also be done to reduce the cloudiness, whereby the fining agents having some charge can be positive or negative depending upon the type of the component which is producing turbidity. So most commonly the positively charged gelatin and other agents like animal or fish products, bull's blood, PVPP, which is a dairy derivative protein, and skim milk powder, they are used. Then coming to, once the wine has been produced, the taste of wines. So here also, it's very important that wine is served at a proper temperature. For white wines, it is 6 to 11. For red wines, it is 16 to 18 degrees. So the wines should be served as such without any dilution. No ice, even no ice should be added in the glasses for. Then another important aspect, this is the type of glass which is to be used. The glass has to be inverted type. It should not be an open glass, like its surface should not be exposed much. Now you see it is in curved inside because it collects the aroma of the wines and gives back to the wine in the wine liquid. And you see, when wine is filled, when it is put in the glass and filled, the legs or the you can see the condensed wine droplets, they come back into the wine. That is basically, and it is called the legs, and they collect aroma or the alcohol as well as the alcohol concentration of the wine. Which remains maintained. Then some of the mistakes which are done during wines: glasses should never be filled to the brim, up to their brim. Only half or slightly less than half glass should be filled. And the wines should not be swallowed immediately. They should be swirled in the mouth. Why? That I will show in the coming slides. Different steps tasting wines. Wine is washed, smelled, and then tasted. Now, watching shows like that what is there, what is the clarity of the wine, what is the color of the wine, whether there is any turbidity or some other type of inhibitor in the wine, I would say. Then smelling is done because we have a range of smells when there are buds in the nose, nostrils, through which we smell. Different types of smells are there, which I will discuss in the coming slides. And then taste also. Coming first of all to the taste. Now, you can see the taste buds are spread all over the tongue. We have at the start sweet, then salty, lastly at bitter, the bitter, and sour is on the sides. So that's why the wine is, when it is put in the mouth, it is swirled, so that every taste bud that is all around the tongue, you can have different type of feelings with respect to the sourness, with respect to the salty, the sweetness, and the bitterness. So all this can be felt with the tongue, the different types of buds present in the taste buds present in there. Now, two elements, they make up taste: flavor and structure. The flavors, whether it is a type of lemony flavor, raspberry flavor, or coconut flavor, then structure refers to the level of sweetness, the body in terms of alcoholic strength, the acidity, and the tannins, which are acidity is from the astringency, and tannins, they impart bitter flavor to the wine. So all these, they are studied in this structure. Then the profile is also very important while tasting, because when you put wine into the mouth, you will feel some different type of taste, and once it is swirled and kept for some more seconds in the, maybe up to it's normally practiced at around from up to half a minute, you can keep it in the mouth, and with the time there are different types of feelings in terms of the flavors and in terms of the sweetness or bitterness, they come in the mouth. So all this is recorded in a special type of chart, which is the Davis scorecard, developed by Emery and Davis in US. And, these are some other aspects of tasting, which I have discussed already with you. Now, is smelling, not only tasting. Now, as I said, with tasting, you can see or you can feel whether it is bitter, whether it is sour, whether it is sweet, or whether it is a bitter type of wine. But by smelling, you can have hundreds of, which can be fruity aromas, herbaceous, earthy aromas, or other type of aromas. This slide shows that how wine should be smelt. It is first swilled, and then the nose, it is tilted, and the nose is brought close to the glass, to the brim of the glass. Some people, they rather put some or part of the glass in some part of the nose in the glass also, to have more of the smells. Typical type of aromas which are obtained or which are smelled are the primary, secondary, and tertiary aromas. The primary aromas basically come from the grapes, like the herbaceous or the flowery notes, or the type of grape which is being which has been used for fermentation. And secondary aromas, they come from the fermentation itself, or the yeasty aromas are there. Then tertiary bouquet, that comes from aging, from the oaks, the baking spices, nutty aromas, and vanilla, etc. The types of aromas, they are described in this particular slide. I will not go into detail, but I will rather come to this card which is there. This is called the taste wheel, the taste wheel, or it is also known as the wheel of smelling, which provides more than 150 flavors in this wheel, and this has been divided into different sections, which is especially for different types of wines. Lastly, I would say that the Indian Wine Insider gives some recommendations that you need to make the people more aware of the wines. As I said earlier also, that these wines, they provide nutrition as well as health benefits compared to the hard drinks or distilled beverages, which do not have any health properties. So these need to be the recommendations of the Indian Wine Insider Consumer Outlook. They say that it is very important that the people or the consumers are made aware of the different health beneficial aspects of wines, and also you can have wines as gifts, or you can have the more offerings at different periods of the wine with vis-a-vis the alcoholic drinks in different parties, etc. Then young consumers, they are a promising segment. When I was talking in Delhi to some of the people who were in a party, that how they like wines, I was told that young people, they are more akin to wines than hard drinks, whereas the elder people, they are stuck to the hard drinks. So similarly, because of its health benefits and the different categories of wines, the low alcoholic wines like less than 7% or so, the carbonated ones, these wines, they make women also as an important market segment with respect to wines. And it's not only in the metropolitan cities, rather in different cities, like in I know of Chandigarh, or even in Ludhiana where I reside, there are in clubs, women also drink the low alcoholic wines, because earlier they were taking only the low alcoholic beers like 4% or so. Now they have also those women who were taking beer, low alcoholic beer, and they have tasted wines. They have also shown interest in wines. So it's very important that they are made more aware of the wines. The percentage of wine consumers should be increased. I don't say that the more people should drink alcoholic beverages, but those who are taking, they must switch over to the healthy. Thank you very much.
participants? Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay,
Swati,
thank
you are
you.
audible.
So this is
Thank you so
evening
much, sir.
time. I expect some questions also from the
Yes, there are questions in the chat box.
chat box. Okay.
Yes, sir. Participants, you can ask the questions. One by one, we can take it.
Swati, you can go according to chat box.
Sure, sir. Okay. Sir, there is one question for the participants. That participant want to know that I would
No,
like to know
Swati,
about
Yeah, I
wines.
can read. I
Swati,
can read.
please, sir,
Have some analytical tests that how could come to know that wine is free from any toxin. So there are tests, the analytical ones by the HPLC or others, but basically the toxins which are there, either it is a high sulfur dioxide or methanol is normally talked about as far as the specifications of wines are concerned. The high sulfur dioxide can be easily checked by the titration method, whereas the methanol, for methanol also, there are methods available, but gas chromatography is GLC is more important in determining the residual content of methanol. Normally, methanol is not produced if the wines are properly prepared. Then another question is any government regulation or restrictions on quality? What are the parameters to be maintained by the manufacturer? That I have already discussed the different parameters, right from the processing, the sanitation part, and then the proper yeast concentration, proper type of yeast species should be there. Then as far as the regulations are concerned, you can see the sweet rules, or there are some wine rules also available on the excise, the central excise website. How is wine market? How many varieties of Indian grapes are superior for wine? The Indian, the Bangalore Blue, that is being more preferred with respect to the wines, and then for red wines, and then Pinot is also being followed. There are, as I said, there are some exotic varieties also, which are being grown by the good wineries, like Grover wineries, they are Sula wineries. They are having their own vineyards, growing the exotic varieties also. How much KMS is used? KMS, as I said, it is normally 1 gram per 10 liter, but the residual concentration should not exceed 75 ppm. Then is if I isolate a new strain of yeast and test it for production of wine, only methanol and sulfur dioxide toxin will be produced. Well, I could not understand your question. Well, there are different when we isolate a new yeast for wine production, there are different parameters. The basic parameters of any industrial yeast are that it should be stable, it should repetitively produce the same amount of product, alcohol in this case. Then it should be tolerant to around 13% or 14% of alcohol concentration. Then it should be able to ferment at a pH of around 3 to 4. It should be able to carry out the fermentation. As I said, the alcohol consumption, it should be tolerant to around 14% of alcohol, or not less than this. Then only methanol and sulfur dioxide toxin will be produced. No, Sulfur dioxide is not produced. Rather, when we put the sulfite for sanitation purposes, for preservation purposes, or as antibacterial agents, the residual concentration needs to be monitored. Methanol will be produced only when the yeast is not producing ethanol alone. It produces some other metabolites also. Then if you have to test or make your yeast commercial, then you need to understand the type of flavors it produces, how much is the consumer acceptance with respect to those flavors. That also needs to be monitored. Then of course, when we carry out the sensory profiles, that the type of which I discussed in the tasting part, in the sensory part, that type of different flavors being produced, the taste, how much the taste of the wine is good for or is appropriate with respect to a standard wine. Only then the new yeast can be said that this is a yeast of a good wine quality. Wine which is a superior quality in India. Well, this again depends from person to person. But most of the wines, the Nashik wines, they are good. Honey wine, which honey is used, fresh or old honey is preferred. Well, honey wine, my friend, this is called as mead. Wine is a word which is only used for grapes. Whenever you use wine with any fruit, or you carry out fermentation of any other fruit, it can be guava, it can be some other fruit. So you put the name of the fruit in front of wine and put a hyphen in between. Then it can be called as that particular fruit wine. And honey wine is called as mead. Normally, from economics point of view, people, they use the fresh wine, because the fresh wine, fresh honey. When the fresh honey is the honey is first produced, is extracted first of all from the combs, and then it is the clarification of it is done. It is processed. So even we have seen that without processing or without making the final honey, you can use that crude honey also for making the meat. End product has reached, how to recognize. Well, this I have explained with the sensory profile. You can check the alcohol concentration also. Then any government regulation restrictions on quality, yes, they are. You can check the sweet rules. It is given there in the excise websites also. Why is the fermentation temperature for both red and white wine different? Well, the reason for this difference is that in case of red wines, we are preparing a must. And if we take more time for the fermentations, the volatiles will be lost. That is why the fermentation temperature is kept higher in case of red wines compared to the white wines. Then question is, what is the importance of aging? You see, when I was talking of the secondary fermentations and the malate fermentation, then I told that when you age the wine, it particularly in the oak barrels, or you put some filings also, oak filings in the wine, so they impart bitter flavor in the form of tannins. So that's why it is important. Then also in aging, the settling occurs. So any sediments, they are removed. So that's why we rack the wines. It is repeatedly, it is siphoned off and put in fresh, you can say, materials, fresh bottles, or materials. How much concentration of KMS I have said? 1 gram per 10 liter. How we can filter the eels or debris by cheap methods or traditional methods? Siphoning or racking is the cheapest method. Then you can use bentonite or gelatin also. Well, it will all depend upon the type of turbidity or the type of problem which is there in the wines. Whether it is not clear, what is the reason that it is not clear? You need to look into the proteins or protein concentration of the wine. The turbidity is due to what reason? So according to that, you can adopt a method for clearing of wine. How tea wine differ from other wine? Tea wine, because for wines you need sugar. In case of fruits, the sugars, they are present in the fruits itself, either in the form of sucrose, glucose, or some other sugar. But in case of tea wine, we are using the cane sugar as a source for fermentation. But once we put the tea in tea leaves into that, so we are basically making it a wine which has the flavor of tea. Then let me check if I am left with some question. I'm a graduate from biotechnology. Where can I do the internship related to fermentation? Sir, you are from which place? There are many companies which are there, particularly Maharashtra. There are many wineries where you can carry out the internship. How is wine Indian market as that of global scenario? It's very less. The Indian market has the potential, but we are very behind to wines. Increasing, we are able to cater to the 70% of our needs. We are exporting also, so we see that very shortly will be in the countries which are producing. It's a repository of yeast which can be used for brewing wines. Are these available for amateur brewers? Yes, they are available. MTCC is there in Chandigarh, Punjab. You have NCIM, National Collection of Industrial Microorganisms in Pune. So you can have the wines from there. Or from, if you want specialized wines, they're available from the vendors. We'll be happy to take it. Okay. Other than grapes also. Yes, as I said, away from grapes, you can have, depending upon the region you belong to, you can use any fruits for making wine, particularly if they have a good flora with good flavor. If there's any other question, you can put in the chat box. I think that Swati, I am done with the questions.
Yes, sir.
What is happening if we add, last question, what is happening if we add ice in wines? This will dilute the wine, sir. This will dilute the wine. It will have lower alcohol concentration. Every nutrition will get diluted. So you don't need to put ice. Only the bottle needs to be stored at a proper temperature, that is 15 degrees or less than that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
For taking each and every question and explaining to the participants. Thank you so much.
So I'm thankful to
Desh-
Dr. Deshmukh sir also. So who is leading the Microbiology Society India in a very, very efficient manner. And I think and I wish that our Microbiology Society India grows each and every hour. Thank you very much.
Sir,
Thank
for your good wishes. And the many devotees like you are working in microbiology. I really appreciate the efforts of Swati and Vijay Kumar, her husband Vijay Kumar.
Okay.
They are
He's also
doing really.
microbiologist?
Huh?
Is he also microbiologist?
Yes, yes, Dr.
Oh.
Vijay Kumar.
Oh, good, good, good.
Both of them are working in RK University in Gujarat.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
And they are really taking efforts for the development of microbiology society.
Yeah.
So that's why the future of microbiology in India is good.
Yes. It's very good, sir. It's very good.
Yes, yes. Swati, you can go ahead.
Thank you so
Good
much.
afternoon, sir. Myself, Dr. Vijay Kumar.
Yes, pardon.
Good afternoon, sir. Myself, Dr. Vijay Kumar.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
So, as sir told about me, that's why I thought to just have an interaction with you. I am